We have added several changes into our staging area. Now it is time for us to commit or persist these changes into the repository. For that, we can use the commit command. This command basically allows us to persist any change into the repository. That is, everything that is in the staging area will be moved into the repository or to the history of changes, which is the same to say that everything will be part now of the history of changes of the repository. The commit comes alongside a message, which allows us to, in brief words, describe what the commit does. Each commit creates a point of reference in the history of changes. That is, in the history of changes, every commit represents a set of changes. Inside of a commit, we can have several changes, for example, new files, modified files, or deleted files. Let's see an example of this. Let's come here and let me say git commit -m of message, and here I can put the message of the commit. It is important that this message describes what is this commit doing. We're going to talk about later how to write effective commit messages, but in general, you want to be brief, concise, and clear about what the commit does. You don't have to say everything. I don't have to say this will add these 6 files and so on, but I should say something that allows people that sees this commit to understand what's going on. So I will just say here, adds text files. Alright, so I press enter. And something interesting that we can see when we execute this command is that it says the amount of files that change, in this case 6. And it also gives us a SHA, this SHA that we have here. The hash is a unique value that identifies a commit. This is useful when we want to reference a specific commit. Now, if we write git status, enter, the only thing that we have interesting to display is this test.js file that we have here. Notice that we're not getting any kind of information about the txt files because they have been committed into the repository, and therefore, since there are no more changes to them, then there is nothing to display here in git status. Now, let's come back to our text editor, in our case Sublime, and I want to modify this file. I want to say here, now this file has been modified. Alright, save. Now let's come back here and let me say git status one more time, enter, and we're going to see that now we also have this modified test.txt here. This means that Git is able to compare how this file is now in the work directory and how this file is in the repository, and it can see that there has been changes, and therefore it says that this file has been modified. If we want to, we can add this into the staging area, for example doing git add test.txt, and with this we will add this modification into the staging area so that then we can commit it to the repository. But let's say that I don't want to do this. What I want to do is that I want to add everything, including this test.js, into the staging area, the creation of this file. So let's do that. Let me say here git add dot to add everything, enter, and let's see that now if I write git status, enter, we're going to see that we have new file, test.js, and modified test.txt. Also, we can, for example, delete a file. Let's come here, I want to come here, and let's say that I want to delete this file, test5. So, delete. Alright, so now, let's come here, and let's see that if I say git status, we're going to see that we have a change that has not been committed. So I have this in the staging area, and this is not in the staging area. This is only in the working directory. If I do a git commit, only this will be committed and not this. Now, let's pretend for a moment that I want to have 2 commits. One commit for these changes and then another commit for this deletion. So let's do that. Since this is already in the staging area, I only have to say git commit -m modifies a file and creates another. Alright, so enter. If I say git status, we can see that we only have this pending. Now let's say that I indeed want to persist this deletion of this file. So let me say git add everything, then git commit -m deleting test5.txt. Alright, enter. So this works. Excellent. Now this deletion has been persisted. Now, let's, for example, delete yet another file. For example, this one. I will delete it. Now, if I say git status, we can see that we have that pending. Of course, we don't have to keep doing git status. I'm just doing this so you see what we have here. I can directly go to git add and git commit. But what I wanted to show you is that if a file is already being tracked, like this test4, something that we can do is that instead of doing git add and then git commit, we can do them in the same command. So I can say git commit -a of add and m of message, and then right here, deleting the file test4.txt. Now, please notice that I can use this -a here because this is already a file that is being tracked. If this were a new file that's untracked, this -a would not do anything to that file. This -am only works for files that are already being tracked. Now, something that I want to do is that I want, by mistake, put a 2 here. So basically, I'm introducing an error into this commit message. This is something that we're going to fix later. So let me press enter. And now this is in the repository. Alright, so we can continue.